Welcome
to Smash
Fiction's
1 year anniversary episode!
It was 1 year ago today when we decided to answer that most burning of questions. Who would walk away in a fight between two characters whose popularity arguably peaked in the late 80s to early 90s? And the world was a different place.
It was.
Yeah.
It's a different place now.
It really is. I mean, look at the world today, and we're so sorry. We're so sorry. Yeah, so we've done a whole bunch of episodes right now, and what's kind of weird is that a strange continuity has started to emerge in between episodes, entirely unintentional on our part, I assure you.
Most of the things that happen in this podcast were entirely unintentional
This
until they happened.
podcast is basically like chaos theory in action. This is just like the emergence of structure from utter bullshit. We decided for our 1 year anniversary to take a look back at the strange universe that we've ended up creating with Smash Fiction. And I will point out, this will go over every single episode we've done so far, so spoilers, etc. You know, it's been a year, so there's gonna be some references to who won certain matches.
Is this gonna be like that thing at the Academy Awards where you just see everyone who died this year, but like real weird?
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. But in audio version.
The T-800 saved John Connor from becoming part of the Predator's trophy collection and can now be found at Disneyland dressed as Gaston.
Angel Grove was destroyed by Godzilla, likely prompting the creation of Power Rangers. Gojira Force!
Samus Aran was presumably assimilated by the Borg Collective, while Master Chief gained possession of the starship Heart of Gold and its infinite improbability drive. God help us all.
Albus Dumbledore defeated Gandalf to take possession of the Tome of Eternal Darkness, locked it away in Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and died.
The tome used its eldritch influence to summon the evil Venetian soldier Iago across space and time to claim it, and Iago set himself up at Hogwarts as a remedial defense against the dark arts teacher.
However, he was exposed by Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger after unsuccessfully attempting to destroy their relationship and fled Hogwarts with the tome.
New Hogwarts headmistress Maleficent sent detectives Harry Dresden and John Constantine after Iago. And after winning a thrilling Magic the Gathering tournament, Dresden returned the tome to Hogwarts.
So now Maleficent has it.
His most exalted majesty, Victor Von Doom, saved the noble nation of Latveria from the pretentious propaganda of the fiendish Batman. Miles wrote this, not me. As well as from some sort of Colossus thing. I'm not reading that last bit, Miles.
All hail Doom!
Vanellope von Schweetz won the Great Rainbow Road Race, but was eventually forced to turn to a life of Grand Theft Auto. She was so successful that she became the star of the new game, Sugar Rush 2, Gone in 60 Sprinkles, rated M for mature.
After a brief but steamy romance, Lara Croft left Indiana Jones stranded in Hyrule, where he has struggled in vain to create a Deku Whip.
The Gargoyles are currently serving time at Rikers Island Penitentiary in New York. No word yet on why they were fighting the Ninja Turtles in the first place. Back to you, April.
On the plus side, they've struck up a friendship with their cellmate, Richard B. Riddick, largely centered around their mutual hatred of Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil.
Arthas the Lich King defeated Diablo and Kerrigan to claim some super awesome Hearthstone cards. He would go on to become prom king at Blizzard High and was voted most likely to destroy the world with vast armies of the undead.
Diego de la Vega, aka Zorro, won the heart of Princess Elsa of Arendelle, but was sucked through a black hole along with his rival Inigo Montoya to a galaxy far, far away. Both men trained in the ways of the Jedi, but Zorro defeated Inigo again to win the heart of Princess Leia, taking a prominent place in the Rebel Alliance by her side.
Leia's previous consort, Han Solo, got sucked into a wormhole and hasn't been seen since, as he has been trapped in the Farscape universe thanks to Malcolm Reynolds.
Yes, this means Kylo Ren was never born. Thank God.
Or is he the son of Zorro in this time?
Oh no! Though it should be noted that Darth Vader has been resurrected and is once again the right wrist man of Emperor Palpatine, having dispatched his also resurrected rivals, Darth Tyrannus and Darth Maul.
A forlorn Elsa, meanwhile, didn't have much time to grieve, as she accidentally wandered through a portal created by Lord Asriel, and along with Iceman, Sub-Zero, and the Ice King, was enlisted to help find a new home for the armored bears of Svalbard. Iceman became the bears' most respected champion, but the Ice King became the mayor of their new, and suddenly much colder home, Night Vale.
Meanwhile, Asriel's daughter Lyra wandered through a portal of her own and was forced to compete in the Hunger Games, where she was murdered by Arya Stark, along with Wesley Crusher and Her Majesty Hannah Montana.
Ironically, former Hunger Games winner Katniss Everdeen was, at the time, engaged in a battle of survival with Arya's half-brother Jon Snow in the Savage Land. She's still there, as Jon escaped, though it pained him to part with his partner in bromance, Khazar, and became a highly successful inspirational speaker.
Sterling Archer failed a Monarch-funded ISIS mission to steal one of Dr. Thaddeus Venture's dubiously functional creations, thanks to the intervention of Venture's bodyguard, Brock Sampson, who, incidentally, is now the world's greatest Pokemon trainer. Thanks, Pokemon Go.
Yeah, the previous world's greatest Pokemon trainer, Ash Ketchum, was eaten by dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
After her son's failure and subsequent strange disappearance, Mallory Archer was forced to move the ISIS offices into 30 Rock Plaza, where she was quite unable to dispose of the horribly cheerful Kenneth Parcell. He was instead driven to madness by Lucille Bluth.
Silent Hill was purged of its evil by the Ghostbusters. It's not yet been confirmed whether or not the vengeful remnants of that evil is responsible for the Ghostbusters remake.
Blade has become not only the world's foremost vampire hunter, but also its foremost fashion model, thanks to his signature Child of the Night look.
Monstropolis was once again saved by Mike and Sully, despite the attempts of FBI agents Mulder and Scully to catch them and prove that the truth is, in fact, out there. Their report placed the blame for their failure on something called the Aggro Crag.
Link found the Holy Grail, and somehow managed to talk his way out of the city of King's Landing, leaving Geralt of Rivia behind.
However, on the plus side, Geralt got to witness an awesome archery contest, which was won by an anthropomorphic fox named Robin Hood. Hawkeye, Merida, and Legolas are likely languishing somewhere in the dungeons of the Red Keep. Maybe the Extraordinary League can rescue them.
No Face defeated Homer Simpson and Kirby in an eating contest, and his patented spirit spread has taken the world by storm.
Cameron Poe defeated Edward Malis, Castor Troy, and Benjamin Gates in an epic cage match to become the new world heavyweight cage.
Bella Swan hooked up with Dr. Frankenfurter, though the music video made for her by Jareth the Goblin King will live forever, like pretty much everything else produced by David Bowie.
Aang, the Avatar, saved the world from the cosmic consequences of an interstellar game of Family Feud.
Sarah Pizzini, aka Witchblade, was devoured by the Venom symbiote before Ryuko Matoi could destroy it with the cunning use of Rock Band.
Neither Dante Sparta nor Deadpool managed to catch the Hamburglar, and when both of them were brought in to become the new face of the McDonald's advertising campaign, only Dante escaped with his intestinal tract and life intact.
The revolutionary/terrorist, known only as V, escaped capture by Judge Dredd and led a people's rebellion that brought Airstrip 1 to its knees.
Carrie White straight up blew Matilda's head off with mind bullets.
Commander Shepard got laid in the Mos Eisley spaceport. Captain Kirk did not.
Shere Khan killed Simba and became the new ruler of the Pride Lands. Tiger Aikido beats Lion Judo every time.
Carmen Sandiego was captured by Boba Fett and presumably frozen in carbonite. Waldo is still hiding from the Slender Man.
Rick Sanchez made it onto the board of scientists and won a podcast while he was at it. Professor Farnsworth has no memory of these events.
Daenerys Targaryen was repelled by the hordes of Mordor on the field of battle, and the field of Quidditch.
Catwoman stole the Pink Panther diamond from the Maharaja's palace. Black Cat wasn't so lucky.
Sephiroth defeated Kefka and put an end to the original Dungeons & Dragons game world. Well, at least Kefka got to die. That was what he wanted, right?
Lilo and Stitch became the stars of their own show on the Wasteful Billionaires Network after successfully recapturing the Animaniacs. Until Stitch was recruited by the League, that is.
Sarah Connor successfully terminated the alien Syl, leaving Ellen Ripley stranded on the planet Omicron Persei 8. Ripley now works at the ticket booth in Judgment Land, the Terminator theme park.
And, of course, let's not forget, Dan Mulcairn murdered his brother and left his body to freeze on a mountainside somewhere.
He kind of had to.
Good times.
Cabin fever.
Good times. So that's what a year of utter nonsense looks like. That plus a handful of Extraordinary League episodes, and you got yourself some Smash Fiction.
Yeah, thank you for sticking in there. This shit's crazy, guys.
Yeah.
Please send your fan-written fan fiction to our email. Thank you.
Speaking of fan stuff,
as opposed to non-fan written fanfic.
Oh man, that segue though.
It was good, and then
Kit
it
just
stopped.
trampled all over it.
God damn it, Kit.
Fuck your script. Fuck your script.
There's no script. This is all off the cuff. That's why that
it.
segue was so good. Anyway, we reached out to you for fan questions, and you guys responded with a mountain of them. So we are going to try to get through as many of these as we can. I think we can get through all of them, but, well, we'll see. We will see.
Let's start off with our dear gameable podcast. How does each host approach judging? Is there anything that biases you or sways you more than it should?
For me, a thing that I started to notice is not just like how good someone is in a vacuum, but there's a sort of phrase I've been telling myself is like, what is their path to victory? This first occurred to me in the Aang versus Captain Planet match. You know, they were both really strong. The reason that I gave it to Team Aang was because even though it was like didn't make a whole lot of sense what they came up with, they presented a path to victory. They said he would like dismiss him or like, you know, take his powers away or something like that. And the other team didn't say that. They're just like, he's really strong, he's really tough, you know. So I don't know if you guys have ever thought about something along those lines. Or
I think that giving a clear and believable way for your character to beat the other character, you know, something beyond, well, my character is just stronger, I find that to be a really compelling argument for me too.
Okay, so the way I approach judging is I just take in everything everyone says that hasn't canceled each other out, because sometimes that happens, and I go into the bathroom and I try to imagine this fight taking place the way you guys have told me it's going to happen. I was going to talk about the lightning round, but somebody else asks that question, so I'll hold off on that.
Well, and speaking of the lightning round, I think we know how Liz judges her matches.
Okay. Contrary to popular belief, the lightning round does not weigh as much to me as in fact, the lightning round, I don't even take that into consideration at all when I judge, because it's just fucking stupid. And
It's for fun.
it's complete, yeah, it's for fun. And speaking of lightning rounds, from Thomas Durfee, he asked, how does everyone weigh the lightning round when it's their turn to judge? If someone botches the rebuttals but crushes the lightning round, does that weigh equally? Do you use the lightning round to get a better idea of the main fight, or is the lightning round a separate category? It seems like the lightning round might be a kind of Rorschach test. So, as I was saying earlier, what we originally intended was the lightning round was supposed to just be really funny, to go, I don't know, off the walls craziness with your characters, and it doesn't really weigh a whole lot in the actual matchup.
I have specifically in the past declared a winner of the lightning round and then awarded the match to someone else.
Yeah.
So I think that tells you a little bit in terms of, just to answer the previous question, in terms of how I approach judging. I think all you guys had really good answers. If it's really even, as it so often is, I honestly tend to go for who was funnier, who had a wittier argument, whose arguments was more memorable, and beyond that, I just try not to give it to Dan. I don't have to.
For me, I typically use the lightning round as a tiebreaker. So, you know, if we're going into the lightning round and I feel like the two sides are really neck and neck, then I'll sometimes give the win to whoever does better in the lightning round. I definitely did this in Doom versus Batman and also in Gargoyles versus Turtles. But yeah, if one side has just dominated in the main rounds, though, then the lightning round doesn't usually make too much of a difference for me.
Yeah, I'm sort of with Dan there. Like, it happens very, very rarely, but sometimes the arguments made in the lightning round, silly as they may be, actually are good arguments for, like, the character's just general skill.
Yeah, because sometimes in the main round we have fights where the characters are so evenly, like either they're both Mary Sues, they have really similar skill sets.
Yeah.
And to prevent things from going in circles, sometimes lightning round can be like, well, look at all the skills they said in the main round. They're applying them here in the lightning round.
I'm going to go with a question from podcast famous Andy that was specifically directed to me.
Right.
So he asks Miles specifically, is the Bray Wyatt character salvageable as a threat anymore? What do you think of him possibly being a face in the future? Now, for those of you who don't watch professional wrestling, the Bray Wyatt character is a character in professional wrestling who is basically like an evil, swamp-dwelling hillbilly cultist who has magical powers sometimes. And he is an awesome character and he's an awesome wrestler, but for whatever fucking reason, they just, like, keep shitting on him. They never give him good stories, and they always have him lose, to the point where, like, he's kind of a joke.
Is this the one that you compared to Castor Troy?
Yes. Yeah. I do think he is salvageable as a threat. I think that it's going to take a long fucking time. It's going to be a long road back to build him back up as an actual threat to anyone because of how much damage has been done to the character. As far as him as a possible face, I mean, I don't understand why they haven't done it already. They were doing it a few months ago when he had that teamed up with Roman Reigns in that tag match, and it was fucking awesome. And then he got hurt, and when he came back, they just made him a heel again. Yeah, I think he could definitely be a face. People are ready to cheer him, but he needs to be cool, he needs to be credible, and he needs to win matches. And I know it's weird to say that when you talk about professional wrestling, but winning matches matters.
Man, you are really missing having your wrestling podcast, aren't you, Miles?
I really do. I do.
So Podcast famous Andy asks me, what do you think about most comic book movies being origin stories? Is it possible to make a commercial success without it either being an origin story or a sequel and instead some popular story arc? Okay, so what this question sparked in me when I read it was there's a thing that one of my illustration teachers told me. He says, it's really difficult to make a good work of art, just in general. It's like, for the sake of this analogy, we'll say it's like, hitting a home run in baseball. If you're trying to make a work of art about something that's become cliched, then it's like trying to hit a home run and then you start off with one strike. You can still do it, and it can still end up being just as good, but you just kind of have to work harder. There's more pitfalls. There's all that kind of stuff. And so I think it's totally possible to have new good movies that are origin stories. I don't think that premises are inherently bad or good. It's all kind of in the execution. And then
Iron Man.
Yeah. And to get up on a slightly adjacent soapbox, I don't think that we should have so many things that are adaptations. I think we should have more original movies that are just movies that are self-contained things, because I think that it's getting a little ridiculous, but that's not the question at hand.
Shut up, Wesley.
So the second part was, he said, is it possible to make a commercial success without it being an origin story or a sequel and instead some popular story arc? So the phrase commercial success makes it seem like something I'm not really qualified to answer, because I don't really care whether or not things are commercially successful. I guess I would say, like, yes, it is, because I think that basically anytime there's some executive who says, you can't make a commercially successful movie about blah, then like a year later someone does it and it's totally fine. I think like another good thing to look at here might be the movie of The Incredibles, which was not an origin story. It just starts off in this new like superhero world. They don't introduce anything about what's going on, and it's just kind of this standalone story about this one superhero and his family, but more the one dude. He gets more screen time, and like kind of what's going on in the lives of this family, that kind of thing. I think that's a good example of how you can do a thing and not have like, why are there superheroes in The Incredibles? Nobody cares.
So podcast famous Andy asks me, what is your favorite boy band? In case you can't pick one, here's an alternate question. What inspired you to start the show? I mean, the boy band I've listened to the most is the Backstreet Boys, largely because they were...
Backstreet's back,
I mean, they were. I don't think they are right now. But, like, largely, I've listened to them because they were really popular before I had really established any sort of taste in music, and so I guess them by default. In terms of where the show came from. So I had talked to both Liz and Miles separately about starting a podcast, but we couldn't really decide on anything solid to podcast about. And I decided that I wanted something with a really strong structure and format, because I don't really trust my own ability to be funny and interesting consistently enough without a framework to keep things moving. But eventually I remembered how back in high school and college, my friends and I would do these versus matches all the time. I'd sometimes come up with like dozens of them and then just spring them on my extremely patient friends when we were at lunch or on a road trip or something. And it was lots of fun. I've always been a huge fan of fictional crossovers, as League demonstrates.
Boy.
Yeah. So the versus match was something that very much appealed to me. And so once I realized that could conceivably be a basis for a podcast, I mentioned it to Liz and Miles. We roped in Kit and Colin, and then all five of us sat down. We hashed out the episode by episode format. Specifically, Liz came up with the idea for the lightning round, which will surprise no one if you've listened to any episode of the show.
No one.
Hey, you didn't rope me in. I was sitting there with you when you came up with it.
I was trying to make it sound like we wanted you, as opposed to like you just elbowed your way into the show.
Podcast famous Andy Spurlock asks, who would you cast in Saga, the motion picture? Okay.
He's asking you that specific.
Here's the thing. I actually haven't read Saga yet, because Dan warned me that is it because the artist, she takes a very, very long time to complete the comics,
they
right?
go on regular hiatuses of several months.
Right. And I can already tell that it is fucking phenomenal, and I cannot handle those waits. So I'm going to wait for it to all be finished, and then I'm just going to binge on my favorite little seal dude. That's all the goose. I'm gonna just die.
Kit, are you not just already living in the thing you are trying to avoid, which is not reading Saga?
I have plenty of other things to do, so when it comes out, I'm just gonna goose binge.
Gotcha.
You'll find me in a puddle of tears. I'll have dehydrated from crying.
So who would you cast as Goose?
Who is cute enough, but like just a seal.
Well, I think he would probably be CGI. Or
Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis.
Oh fuck yes!
Wow.
There you go.
Yes.
We did it.
Podcast famous Andy asks me, could Hannah Montana write a song so emotionally charged that she herself could not sing it? Yes, she could. And it would be sung by Celine Dion. She would sing about how Hannah Montana is sorry for using the Jonas Brothers as a vehicle. And
Very emotional.
She
it would be
needed to
really
know.
Yeah.
sad. Because my question was really short, I want to steal another question, if that's okay with everybody.
Go for it. Go for it.
From Megan Bob. If you were going to have one piece of inside joke merch for the podcast, what would it be? Well, let me tell you, it would be a black t-shirt. Best clothing of choice for nerds. Love them black t-shirts.
Of course.
And it would be in white lettering, starting from the middle, a D, and then O all around the shirt,
Yeah.
ending with an M, and then in the bottom right would be a little toilet bowl and Colin's face in it.
Oh no.
Oh.
You know, I was about to say I think we can do that, but never mind.
And in the back it would be me and Miles like high-fiving each other.
That's goddamn right.
But yeah.
I think it'd be cool to have a poster or a shirt that looks like the silhouette shot of the main characters from Reservoir Dogs, but make it the characters from League.
That'd be nice.
We're gonna have Stitch's Battle Laddle. And it's gonna Transformers-esque, like little Transformers toys turn into a boomerang. That's really shitty.
I think we should make an implant that goes into your brain that fills you with a burning desire to get fucking shit-faced every time someone says anything about role-playing games. Liz just asked a question from Megan Bob, and she actually sent another one, which I'd love to go around the table on, which is, what's been the hardest matchup to judge? I thought for a long time about the answer to this question, but in the end, it was pretty easy to come up with. The hardest match to judge for me was Jareth versus Frank.
Yeah.
That
That's
one,
good to hear.
it was such a fucking toss-up. I was like, I don't know. You both did crazy awesome musical round shit, and I just don't. It was so tough. In the end, I went with Frank, but that was definitely the hardest one.
Yeah, for me, it's Daenerys versus Mordor. That one still keeps me up at night wondering if I made the right choice. I'm pretty sure I did, but like, I just don't know sometimes.
Pretty sure you did too.
The hardest match for me was Arthas Lich King versus Kerrigan versus Diablo.
Oh.
Oh yeah.
Just because those are, Blizzard franchises, love that. And that lightning round was magical.
It really was.
I think that really redefined what the lightning round could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know
I
what?
think
I
that
think
was
that
the
was
one.
the one, yeah.
Yeah.
Trying to imagine Diablo squeezing into football pads, Arthas being like an emo blonde boy, and Kerrigan trying to be popular. It was like, oh god.
I think for me, the one that tore me most up in the moment was Dresden versus Constantine. Like, because they were just so similar. And then there was like, I'm not too familiar with either one, so it sounded really complicated, and I was getting a very like condensed version of these events, and I'm like, I feel like I need more information on what the hell that meant. You know what I mean? Like, the one that's haunted me the most after, as I alluded to earlier, was Aang versus Captain Planet. That one I've kind of regretted or gone back and forth. Like, did I make the right decision? Did I not make the right decision? I don't know. That one is the one I kind of go back to thinking about the most.
Okay, for me, I looked through the whole list, and man, they are all so hard whenever I have to do this. But I always make the right call, so I don't. I just don't look back at. I've looked at the whole list and went, you know what? Like, I don't regret any of these decisions I've made. It was really, really hard. I'm just gonna say it was the very first match, Terminator versus Predator, because I was the first judge. I was the first one who had to fucking do this, and it's the one I remembered the least. I only remember the agony. So.
Yeah.
At Paladin Today asks, what are your favorite tabletop systems to play? For me, I have a big list of things that I want to try playing that I've only played like once or twice, In terms of stuff that I've played a lot, I think the top ones for me are Savage Worlds, which is just my go-to whenever I want to because it's the one I've played so much that I've just like internalized it, and I can just run it in my sleep. That's the one when I want to have like a kind of action-y, fighty, traditional adventure type thing. And then the other one that I go to is Fiasco, for when I want something that's just more improv-y and fun and no prep and whatever. I always have a good time when I play Fiasco.
Those are both so good.
Yeah.
The only one I would tack on. Oh no, I would tack maybe a couple onto that. D&D 5th edition, the best D&D so far. Get over it, 3.5 lovers. It's all about 5th now. I really, really like Dan's modified Marvel system, like quite a bit. Like I have definitely played with it a lot, but he's just done such a great job. And I think you can kind of get a sense of how it plays just by listening to League.
I'm approaching this one from a weird angle because I don't really what's my favorite system to play? I don't know. I don't know what my favorite system to play is. I know what I know the ones I don't like. I'm not a huge fan of. This is like a Miles answer,
Right.
but I don't like White Wolf.
I
I
know,
don't like
fuck this system.
I don't like White Wolf. I don't like Shadowrun. I don't like, there's stuff like that. But like for me, the games that are the most memorable and that stand out to me as the best systems are the ones where I've just had the most fun playing in them. And so that's kind of how I judge game systems, is like, have I had fun playing in this? And it's not really fair because so much of that is GM and group and story and everything. But just going off that, the best games I've played in have been in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition, D20 Modern, and Nightbane from Palladium.
Oh man,
And
that Nightbane
a game that was
though.
run by Dan himself.
That's right. That was a crazy game.
That was an amazing game, and I've loved Nightbane ever since then, even though Palladium is the drizzling shit as an RPG system.
I'm also going to jump onto Miles' answer. I know it's a really bad system, but I like White Wolf. Maybe that's because I enjoy occasionally, like, min-maxing the shit out of a character. I just like being really competent and then incompetent in every other thing.
I really like 5th edition D&D. I'm also one of those rare fans of 4th edition D&D. I like Gamma World a lot. I can do anything with the classic Marvel system, as Kit pointed out. Savage World is great. But I think maybe my favorite system is actually Oracle, which is a game system that Colin came up with, which is brilliant.
Dan, you're melting my heart.
It is pure.
You're warming his cockles.
I'm not
now.
saying that. I'm not just saying that because he's my brother and my co-host. Oracle is pure, unfiltered genius. It's maybe the best game system I've ever played.
Wow.
And I hope that one day Colin mass markets it, because
Yes.
like the world needs to play Oracle.
Colin
I
makes
wanna
really
play it
good
now.
games. He
Yeah.
just
Colin.
needs to get off his butt and fucking make them.
Colin, you gotta run a game about this for me.
Sure. All right. I just will
Do
say
it.
for the record, yeah, I do design role-playing game systems and other types of game stuff. I've not published anything, but I have basically a proverbial drawer filled with a bunch of unpublished things. I am planning on publishing something actually later this year, my first game. So more on that as it develops.
I should not have gone last on this question. Since I play the least tabletop of anyone
Yes,
on this
sure.
podcast. But if anyone cares, Savage Worlds is my favorite just because it's a very fast-paced system. Things can go from good to bad really quick. Things can go
Yeah.
from bad to good really quick. And there are some awesome chase scenes. And coincidentally enough, Dan wrote one of my favorite Savage Worlds campaigns where we each played 3 characters, an angel, a devil, and a human. And it was some of the best fun I have ever had.
That was a super
That
fun
was
game.
such a good game.
Okay, this question is from Eugene.
Eugene!
And Eugene asks, what is your best Pokemon on Pokemon Go right now? What level are you? Most importantly, what team are you on? And then parenthetically he says, if the answer is not red, pick a gym. I will meet you there, and it is on. Valor
I'll go-
Margulis, yo.
I'll go first. I don't play that game.
Perfect.
Shocking no one.
Yep. I think my best was a Vaporeon. I was level 8, and I was Team Mystic. Notice that all of those are past tense. I lasted about a week on that game and then bounced.
Like Dan, I did the same thing. Lasted about a week, but I did have a CP 500 something Flareon. I even went to the beach one day to catch water type.
Wow.
Then the phone, the app kept shitting all over me, and it was draining my battery, and my phone was overheating. And I said, "Sorry, Team Yellow Instinct. Fuck you. Goodbye."
You do seem like Instinct.
So I'm currently rocking a Combat Power 875 Scyther as my number 1, and I am Team
So
Mystic.
Jelly, you found a Scyther, you fucking
And I control the Camino Real Footbridge Gym. I am the gym leader there. If you want to come on down to Tucson and see if you can take this gym from me, I say bring it.
All right, so I am Team Mystic. I am level 15. I know that's kind of low compared to like really hardcore players. I just don't have time. And my strongest Pokemon is an Arcanine that's like 1200 plus. Sam Ruiz asked, what sort of research do you do? Or is it all just Wikipedia? It is definitely not just all Wikipedia, though maybe some people can only have the time for that sometimes. But like if there's like movies to watch, we totally watch that if we have the time. If it's a show, we watch as many of notable episodes as possible. But it kind of depends on person to person and their time.
I usually just start with the big ones. You know, there was this one movie that it was in. It was like the big movie that everything knows. And then there was also later this like comic book series. Okay, we'll get to that if we have time. But basically, I just
comics.
Yeah, comics are the worst for the record.
Because
there's
we
a
can't
million
read.
of them and they're impossible to find and it's just the worst. But yeah,
And they're fucking expensive if you can
Yeah,
find
no
it.
yeah.
joke.
So We usually start. I mean, I'll usually like read a few wiki pages to get a kind of baseline, and then I'll dive in and like kind of start actually consuming primary sources after that, and just take a million notes. So
Yeah, I find that really diving into the source material is a good way of finding those specific moments that I think carry a lot of weight when you're in the middle of a match. So I spend a lot of time doing research on these.
Unlike Dan, my significant other is not part of this podcast, so I don't have quite as much time. It's usually helpful. It's always helpful if we know the characters a little bit more going in, because then we don't have a little of research to do. If it's something that I don't know anything about, I generally start with a wiki, to be honest. Like, I start there, I look over it, but that's by no means the extent of my research. If I have time, if it's a movie and I have time to watch the movie, I'll do it. If I have time to sit through some episodes of the TV show, I'll do it. But my favorite techniques beyond that are to, A, find someone who has seen it or read it and ask them about the match. Because you're never going to believe this, everybody's down to talk about who would win in the fight between these characters.
Yeah.
So all I have to do, if I need to research fucking Kefka versus Sephiroth, which I didn't have to do, but whatever, is like go to my friend who's really into Final Fantasy and be like, hey dude, what do you think? And he will lay down some shit for me. And the other great thing I love to do is just Google Kefka versus Sephiroth or whatever and see what other people have written online about it. It's a really fun way of finding arguments.
And by the way, it's always terrible. Like there's
it's not.
Whenever we search,
it's not.
Whenever I search, well, I don't know. Whenever I've searched like on a match that we're doing, I'm like, I wonder if anybody else has done this. Like it's oftentimes just like a forum. It'll be like, who'd win, Kefka or Sephiroth? And then the posts are all like Kefka, Sephiroth, Kefka, Sephiroth.
Yeah, but with more like
you gotta find
chest beating.
Right, and
you
like,
gotta find the right
man,
ones,
Kefka
though.
sucks. No, Sephiroth sucks. Like I'm like, okay, that's the level of argument that we're dealing with here.
I like Meg and Bob's questions. If you had to choose a fictional character to argue on your behalf as to why you would win a particular battle, which fictional character would you choose to argue your case? Now, in typical me fashion, I am going to kind of have an off-the-wall answer.
Oh no,
But-
we should have gone last for this one.
No. I would choose Jack Bauer. Now, hear me out. Jack Bauer's speech is pretty much limited to drop the weapon and who's the mole? And the guy is very intimidating, so I don't think his speech is going to be necessary because basically when people try to talk to that guy, he kind of is like, I'm sick of this. Was this too slow? And then strangles them. I mean, he put his own boss to sleep in the first episode of the first season ever of 24. I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You're off the wall. So I think I would have a pretty good chance at winning anything with him on the side. I mean, how many things has he done? Nuclear bombs disarmed, people saved, biohazard things. He's the ultimate weapon.
I'd probably choose Denny Crane and or Alan Shore from Boston Legal, because those guys could basically convince me of anything.
I am so gonna win.
As in so many other things, my answer to this question is the Reverend Jesse Custer.
That's all right. Well,
All he would have to do is say, concede that Miles has won the argument. Done.
I might pick, let's say, Professor X, because I think while Jesse Custer could tell someone to concede the argument, would they think it was their idea?
Oh, why not pick DiCaprio from Inception?
yeah, that's
while
what I
you're
was
at it?
gonna say.
Why not?
That'll take like a whole movie, and he like very well may end up like dying or becoming an old man by the time it's over. He may never end up escaping. Like I don't.
Yeah.
Professor X.
His super hot wife is gonna show up and kill everybody.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Professor X just like wave of the hand, done.
And that's a good answer because Professor X is enough of an asshole to do just that.
All right, do you want the Kit answer or do you want a good answer?
Do the kid
Good
answer.
answer.
Well, you're gonna get both. Fucking Godzilla, duh.
Oh,
Because if things start going, everything's just nuclear waste anyway. If you fucking disagree with me, the good answer would be She-Hulk.
I suppose.
Right on.
I was thinking you were gonna say Jace.
Oh fuck! I take it back, Jace Valera. Just because I want him there next to me.
So Thomas Durfee wants to know if we could go through what the team selection process looks like. Does the judge already have a topic in mind and the discussants propose the characters, or does the judge already have characters in mind? Do the discussants get to pick which team they are on, or are they assigned? I'd like to hear the start to finish on what this process is like. Basically, Thomas, the way it works is that either prior or immediately following every recording, we have a production meeting. And we have a master list full of potential matchups that is constantly growing because all you keep sending in fantastic matches that we want to do.
Mhm.
So we have this big list. Usually what happens first is that Dan goes through and marks everything with a little asterisk
Like what he thinks
and
would
says
be best.
like what he would like to do basically. And the reason we go along with that is because Dan is prepared and we are not. So it's easier to just like pick from his suggestions than to pick from the whole list.
And
Totally
usually-
the backbone.
And usually it's based on things like, oh, we just did a comic book one, or we just
Yeah.
did a match with 4 people, so maybe we should have like just a one-on-one or that kind of thing, you know. The other thing is that most of the matches, it's just 2 names, like this person versus this person, but occasionally we'll have another one that's like a concept. Like the first one that we did of that was the race one, the Mario Kart one. We just had like a giant list of racers. And
Yeah, I mean, we go through and we're like, you know, did we do this medium recently? We try to put fan-suggested matches above the ones that we've thought up. If we can, we have to consider our schedules. Is somebody going to be out? Do we need to bring in a guest host? There's a lot of different factors. Basically, the short answer to your question is we argue about it for about an hour and a half every week.
Once we know what the match is going to be, I think we usually come to what sides we're going to be on pretty easily.
Yeah.
Typically, I think people tend to fall on the sides of the characters that they like more, and then
Or know more about.
I only do that.
yeah.
We have to figure out who's judging. Obviously, we don't do back-to-back one-person judging, and we like to cycle through, you know, every 5 episodes. There's like a new person judging, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yep. The one other thing I want to throw in here that I think is interesting is that sometimes some of our matches will morph from as we talk about it, from a 2-person into like a multi-person, or they'll morph from like a whole bunch of people down into just 2. Like I remember we just had the idea of a vampire hunter off, and then we were like coming up with a whole bunch of different vampire hunters, and then as we kept talking about it, we realized that like Buffy and Blade were heads and shoulders cooler than any of the other vampire hunters that we came up with, and so we decided to just make it straight Buffy versus Blade and to not have like a 3 or 4 person one.
I mean, it's totally malleable is the thing, and like when you say team selection process, the process, like I said, is that we talk about it. Essentially, we
pretty much
we talk about it, and if we don't decide it by the end of the production meeting, we do it in emails. I mean, the way we picked the Hunger Games match was just, hey, we're doing the Hunger Games. Everybody send in which character who would work in the Hunger Games you want.
Yeah.
And I was
Which
like,
is how we ended up with
like,
that particular
Arya.
spread.
We were pitching characters and everything, and we had this whole list that we had going on, and Colin and Liz both ignored that list, I might add.
We just picked our own.
Did anyone talk about how sometimes we'll pick based on themes? I know Colin just touched on it with vampires, but you know, we kind of look at what's going on in popular culture and anything
That's true.
released. And
Holidays, but
base
we're
it
always
on
late
that.
to those.
Yeah, when like Deadpool came out and it was a huge hit, we were like, okay, we should bring in Deadpool again.
Yeah,
well,
like
like,
4
when the
weeks
Force-
after it came out.
When The Force Awakens happened, we did a Star Wars episode. Like, you know,
Yeah.
we try and be timely, you know.
Yeah, we do the Halloween episodes and
Yeah.
the Thanksgiving episode and the Cagemas episode and the Valentine's Day episode.
Yeah.
So, you know, those all come into consideration.
And the April Fool's Day episode.
Yes, indeed.
So Eugene asks, what are some of your favorite podcasts to listen to? I think honestly, I'm not joking. My number one is Gameable. The Gameable podcast is so unapologetically intelligent and so nerdy and so weird that like I just love it so much. It's everything that I want in a show. There's the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith, where this dude interviews screenwriters about movies that are in theaters now. There's Sailor Business, which is great. Mark Rosewater, lead designer of Magic the Gathering, has a podcast called Drive to Work, where he records a podcast while he talks about Magic the Gathering as he drives to work. Getting On with James Urbaniak is amazing. Star Wars Minute. I don't know. I think that those are the big ones. There's a million others.
Biggest podcast network I love to listen to is, I'm a huge video game nerd. It's Rooster Teeth. All of the podcasts that they produce, Rooster Teeth podcast, Dude Soup, The Patch, all video game news. They basically just talk about stupid shit, and I love it for some reason. And those are pretty much the only podcasts. They throw out like 6 a week, but they did just start an actual play RPG a la Mabim Bam or whatever. Adventure Zone?
Nice.
That's what it's
And
called,
Adventure
right?
Adventure Zone.
You mean a la Extraordinary League, the original
Yes.
That's
RPG
right.
actual play podcast.
Uh-huh.
Original and best.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep my list super short. My absolute favorite is Dear Hank and John, because I love John and Hank Green. They're like my idols, basically. But my second favorite one, which is my favorite one for a very long time, is My Brother and Me.
I listen to a ton of podcasts. I actually checked, and I'm currently subscribed to 55 podcasts. But
Make it top 3, Dan.
my favorites are The Adventure Zone, Alice Isn't Dead, Answer Me This, The Bugle, Dear Hank and John, Dusted, The Flophouse, Gameable Podcast, House to Astonish, My Brother and Me, System Mastery, This American Life, and Welcome to Night Vale.
I said top
Jesus.
3.
So I actually don't listen to any of the podcasts pretty much that you guys mentioned.
Miles, tell us the podcast that you hate the most.
Actually, when I was running through, I was trying to find a good Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire podcast a few years ago, and like all of them had something about them that I hated, and I eventually stumbled upon Unspoiled, which is kind of how I got on that bandwagon. But in addition to Unspoiled, which Natasha Kingston's series of podcasts is phenomenal, and if you guys aren't listening to that, you totally should be. I do Dark Tower with her. We cover Dark Tower. Her Harry Potter series is fucking gold. But beyond that, the only really other nerd podcast I listen to is Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, which I was introduced to and like listened to a few episodes and hated, and then like eventually came back to and tried again, and now I am completely addicted.
It's awesome.
So I listen to that a lot. Other than that, most of my stuff is sports and wrestling, guys. I hate to be that guy, but around the NFL, ESPN podcast, the Bill Simmons podcast, pretty much everything going on in the Ringer right now, the Sam Roberts wrestling podcast, the Hard Times wrestling podcast with Elle Collins, which I discovered because of Jay and Miles Explain the X-Men, which is how I first heard about Elle Collins. Yeah. She's like this awesome like queer transgender activist who is into wrestling now. It's amazing. She also has a show called Into It that's really good. But beyond that, I'm all about kind of the drama podcasts, Thrilling Adventure Hour, Night Vale, Alice Isn't Dead was phenomenal, and Escape Pod, kind of stuff like that.
Sam Ruiz asks, Peter Parker or Jimmy Olsen? Who's the better photographer? I have to say, I feel like Peter Parker hasn't really spent a lot of time actually honing his photography skills. Back when he worked for the Daily Bugle, he'd usually just web up a camera and point it at the bad guy. But Jimmy Olsen doesn't have to worry about being a superhero and a photographer at the same time, so I feel like he can focus a lot more on that, unless, he gets turned into a giant turtle or something. So
yeah, I agree. Peter Parker was never a great photographer. The only reason he has a job in photography is because he's the only one who can get shots of Spider-Man for some strange reason.
Yeah, isn't that
so
weird?
Yeah, it's definitely Jimmy Olsen.
I'm picturing him being called into J. Jonah Jameson's office. He's like, whenever we send you to go take pictures of things other than Spider-Man, your photos are kind of shitty.
Well, that happens in the comics.
Does it?
I had an issue of Spider-Man where he walks into Jameson's office and he's like, Look at these photos I took. And Jameson's like, what? These are shit.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I thought we could show a different side of New York for a change. He's like, God damn it, I hired you because that fucking freak will get pictures with you.
Yeah, I just want to see the issue where he's like, I need pictures of Darkhawk. And Spider-Man's like, oh, damn it.
I'm gonna pick Peter Parker because who the fuck is Jimmy Olsen? Don't kill me.
You know what? We haven't done Raphael's one question.
Rafael Medina.
Yeah. Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin versus David Carradine's Bill in a sympathetic villain-off. Who breaks hearts and faces best?
I kind of feel like these characters have kind of a reverse character arc if you look at both of them. Like, the Kingpin, I think, grows less sympathetic as the series goes on. Don't get me wrong, like, I still loved him as a character. I just felt like he was more of a villain at the end than at the beginning. Whereas Bill becomes, like, significantly more sympathetic at the end of Kill Bill. So Bill, I'd say, is probably the more heartbreaking, but in terms of breaking faces, I mean, we see what Kingpin does with a car door, so...
I gotta give it hands down to Kingpin. I kind of felt like... I mean, maybe it was because of the order that they presented the stuff in, but I felt like as they were portraying more stuff of Bill as it went on, maybe I need to rewatch Kill Bill 2, but I kind of felt like it was a bit of a betrayal of the premise of Kill Bill, and it was kind of like an anticlimax, and I know it was supposed to, but that still doesn't mean that I was satisfied by it because there wasn't a climax.
I mean, the premise of Kill Bill is that she's gonna kill Bill, and that's what she does.
But not in a cool way.
I know what you're saying.
She makes his heart explode.
But not in a cool way.
I'm actually gonna go with Bill on this one because my personal opinion of the Kill Bill films is that the bride is the least sympathetic of any Tarantino character. I don't care if she wins. I don't care if she succeeds, and I think she's kind of horrible. So I was totally rooting for Bill the whole time.
From Sam Rees, what's your favorite game series? And do you prefer tabletop or video games? Well, let me tell you, definitely prefer video games. Tabletops are fun. Favorite game series, Devil May Cry, as evidenced by how much I play Dante, and sort of act like him. Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear Solid is another great series. I love the Japanese series that started in the 90s, early 2000s, basically. Elder Scrolls, Mass Effect, Witcher. Witcher's really good. Doom also. Doom was my first love, and not because of that inside joke.
I'm gonna say Tekken, Team Fortress, and any wrestling game.
Nice.
As far as video games are concerned, we already talked about tabletop a lot.
Yeah.
I guess I prefer tabletop.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer tabletop because RPGs are the best.
Yes.
But in terms of video games, my favorite series is Mass Effect. Although I'll play almost anything that has BioWare on it.
My answer is totally a copy paste of Dan's, or is his a copy paste of mine?
Right.
I'm crazy about RPGs, so I definitely prefer tabletop. But I do like some video games. I don't have a lot of time to play them. Mass Effect is totes my fave.
Yeah, I basically echo, Mass Effect's great. I also like the non-MMO Blizzard games, just like the Warcraft and StarCraft series a lot. I love XCOM, because XCOM is basically, when I started playing it, I'm like, this is what I always secretly hope StarCraft will be every time I turn it on. Also, I love procedurally generated stuff like roguelikes. Binding of Isaac is great. Also, game that I like a lot, that a lot of us do, is Magic the Gathering, but still prefer tabletop over video games.
I was just going to say, too, I love how I listed all these single-player series, but I have thousands upon thousands of hours logged on multiplayer competitive games like
League of Legends.
and League of Legends.
Mhm.
And for some reason, like World of Warcraft, Guild Wars, and for some reason I didn't mention those, but thousands of hours. I think the last time I checked my account name on League of Legends, it was like over 700 hours.
So I think we should get to some more of Eugene's questions,
Yep.
because he sent in a few. But one thing he wants to know is how we all met and became friends. He says what makes the podcast so great is that y'all always seem to be on the same wavelength with your references and jokes, and it's the darndest thing ever. And he also asked what we do for a living and how we make the time to be together and produce the podcast. So, how we manage our time, he says, like a responsible adult question.
Okay, Dan met Colin when he was born.
Yep.
How I met Dan is a long but romantic but long story.
Yeah,
so don't worry about
essentially,
that.
we met through a friend, and I was instantly smitten. That was about 9 years ago.
And then I obviously met Colin through Dan. I met Liz through work.
How I met Dan, I was going to say, we were introduced by a friend and I was instantly smitten.
That's true. I was new in town, and I was desperately looking for a D&D group. Met this awesome woman named Viola, and she introduced me to her D&D group, among whom was Miles, and it was love at first sight.
Yeah, we hit it off from there.
Yeah, and Liz and Kit met through work. Liz eventually joined a superhero RPG I was running. I was like, all right, I'm glad that this woman is in my life now.
Yeah, and Liz and I have met like twice now, I think.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we need to hang out more often, dude, because you're the best. So
Yeah,
Sure.
and I've met Liz when I visited Dan and Kit in
On
California
Dan's birthday.
for Dan's birthday, but only one time I've met her in person. I've met Miles like a couple times. I think the first time I met Miles was at Dan's wedding.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
And then it was a few years, and now we're on a podcast together. And Miles recently moved to Tucson, where I live, and we have not hung out once.
We did the one time when Dan and Kit were in town.
Right.
We all played an RPG
Right,
together.
that was via
But-
them. And Miles and
Okay,
I
I-
was like, hey, we should hang out sometime. And then
Yeah.
we just don't.
Do we want to touch on briefly what each of us does
Sure.
for a living?
I'm just going to say I make a little spending money with retail.
I work in an office job. I do accounting and engineering stuff.
I mean, I touched on it in the bonus episode, but right now I host karaoke night at a bar here in town, and I'm also delivering pizzas. Eventually, I went to school for illustration. I'm hoping to make a living doing comic books and game design and that kind of stuff.
My day job is working with kids. I work in childcare. That's just kind of to pay the bills. My degree is in journalism and political science. I'm a freelance writer, and I try to get paid as much as possible from writing. And yeah, as a result, it can be hard to manage the time. That's the answer to that question. How do we make the time? With difficulty.
Yeah.
I have an office job, and that is all I can say about said office job.
There you go. Yeah, I would say that in terms of time management, when it comes to this podcast, like my mantra is do everything much earlier than you think you need to. It will either always end up taking up a lot more time than you think it will, or like something will happen that will cut into your time. So like just whenever you have a second, do what you know needs to get done. That's about all I can offer in terms of time management advice.
I will say one more thing. I am
Do it at the last minute.
Yeah.
At the last fucking minute.
I feel you, Miles.
I'm hoping to make Smash Fiction my job. But
That'd be awesome.
yeah, but my first love, and I don't think I'll ever shake this love, is animals. I'm also kind of trying to make taking care of animals without retail my main thing.
I have time management tips. Step 1, buy a motorcycle.
There
Step 2, save commute time. Step 3, question mark, question mark, question mark. Step 4, profit.
Profit.
you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so here's one from @Paladin Today who says, if I ever finish my tabletop adaptation of EVE Online, would you playtest it for me? At the risk of opening the floodgates to getting sent a million RPGs to playtest, I give like a tentative, yeah, sure. Like, I mean, in the right circumstances, send us some more details, and if you set some sort of Skype thing up, I will happily play in some sort of thing over Skype.
I do like trying out role-playing games. I just don't have time ever for anything. So
I would totally look over the rules if you want to send it, but I wouldn't have time to play test it.
Yeah, I mean, send it to me. I mean, I am very critical, and I have a lot of thoughts on game design, as any of my friends who have ever tried to collaborate with me on designing the game know. I have very strong feelings about everything, so get ready for like a lot of you're dumb.
Eugene asks, Mexican food, Italian food, Chinese food, and bacon walk into a bar. Who wins?
Oh God, you had to ask.
I do if I'm sitting in the bar. But I would say probably Mexican food, because like it has armor in the form of either a crunchy taco shell or like a really thick tortilla. And then it can get like hot chili in your eyes, and then you're blinded. So I'm gonna say Mexican food.
Can we do this without gang stereotypes? I don't know.
I just did.
Can I do this without gang stereotypes?
So are we assuming that these are like elementals, right? It's like a Mexican food elemental, a Chinese food elemental.
The correct answer is bacon, and I'm not going to offer any explanation for that.
What kind of gang does bacon?
See, this is what I'm going to say to that, Miles. I think there are many people that just put forth bacon as if it is self-evident that it is like the end-all be-all best thing ever. And like, I don't know. I think bacon's been riding a little high for too long. I think I'm going to go on board with Dan and say Mexican bacon.
Colin.
I'm going to say, you know what? Bacon's not all that. There are
I love
other
Mexican
foods.
food.
There are
I love
Yes.
I love Mexican food and Italian food and Chinese food. Bacon is the end-all be-all best thing ever. So yes, that's why.
Damn it. I was going to say Mexican food too, but only because it blows up the toilet in the bar and everyone is disgusted and walks out. Because that's what happens to me after I eat Mexican food.
Okay, I'm going to go back to Sam. Have you considered a spin-off Smash nonfiction? Keeping the same fight premises, but with real people. Okay, when we were first talking about Smash Fiction, we originally were considering having real, like, historical people in it, but I think we ultimately decided no.
I would be open to the idea. I think we're just more excited about fictional characters, but
I would be very wary.
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm not really interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, I think evidence, oddly enough, even though these people are real, is probably going to be harder to come by, because I think, like, the thing with the fictional characters is everything that there is of them is knowable. And when it comes to real people, there's like, they have this whole like infinite life and we only know small bits of them. And so it's like much harder to say definitively because they're real.
I just think it'd be less fun.
Yeah, I think it would be a slightly more serious podcast, whether you intended it to be or not, or lean a little more heavily toward offensive.
Yeah, we'll leave that shit to epic rap battles of history.
There you go. And Deadliest Warrior. May it rest in peace.
Oh,
this actually kind of brushes up against one of Eugene's questions. He says, now that Hannah Montana has entered the Smash Fiction verse, when will Kanye v. Taylor throw down?
Never.
And I think that what we would say is that Flight of the Conchords versus Spinal Tap is probably as close to reality as the show's going to get. That is already like on the line of like as close to like kind of half real bands. So yeah.
Plus this one might actually happen in real life. So
exactly. So
I was just gonna say it's gonna be thrown down in a California court of justice.
There you go.
From Eugene, what were y'all's favorite TV shows growing up? Comic books and movies.
My favorite TV shows probably Mad Men. I threw it into one lightning round.
The question is growing up, though.
Oh, growing up. Okay, well,
it's
real
like
quick.
When you were a kid.
Right now, it's Mad Men and Steven Universe, but that's not the question. Growing up, I guess Power Rangers, Digimon. I don't know. There's a lot. What else, Sam? What am I missing? You knew me.
I mean, we liked X-Men and Spider-Man a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I was a big X-Men fan, both in the comics and in the 90s cartoon.
Yeah. We watched a lot of He-Man and Thundercats and Ninja Turtles also.
Oh, yeah, sure. Totally.
For me, also, favorght comic book of all time is Watchmen.
When you were growing up, though?
When is growing up? Is high school growing up?
I'm not sure I've grown up yet.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Movies growing up? Back to the Future, probably.
My favorite comic book when I was a kid was the complete run of the 1980s Secret Wars, which was the first complete run of a comic series I ever bought.
Because it was a crossover.
Because it was a crossover. And my favorite movie was and continues to be the original Star Wars trilogy, although the positioning of which of those movies is my favorite has shifted over the years.
My favorite TV shows were Gargoyles, may they rest in peace, Dexter's Laboratory,
Yeah.
Invader Zim,
Yes.
and 24. Comic books, obsessed with Wolverine. I first got started into comics when a friend gave me the first 20 issues of a 2005 run of Wolverine, and God, do I cherish those books. Movies, Matrix. That movie had such a huge impact on me because not only was it super cool action-wise, but it got me all philosophical and shit, and I'm like, oh, what is life?
Miles, you got some partial answers in there. I think I know what your comic book choice is.
I mean, yeah. Well, besides X-Men and Spider-Man, I was all about New Warriors when I was growing up. So I'm a huge New Warriors fan. I recently did a podcast about it on What's Going with Owen, which is a side Unspoiled project. So I was all about that. TV shows, I mean, I was a kid. I didn't have, like, cable, so it was mainly... It was Wishbone. It was Home Improvement. I watched a shit ton of Where in Time as Carmen Sandiego as a kid. God, what else? Like, I mean, fucking Frasier, Seinfeld,
Fresh
like, all the late...
Oh, Fresh Prince.
I did not watch Fresh Prince.
Oh, it's so good.
Movies... I don't know. I used to get obsessed with movies and, like, watch them over and over again, but they weren't anything good. Like, I rented Dunstan Checks In, like, 5 times. But the other thing I'd say is I was super, super into Transformers, the old cartoon show and the 80s movie.
Besides being super into Gargoyles as well, I was a huge weeaboo, and I'm still a little bit of a weeaboo. But
A little bit.
when I was a kid, an anime was like really coming into its own in America. It was playing on Cartoon Network like after school. So I watched like all of those. Then I also got really into manga. Unfortunately, didn't get into American comic books until really recently because they seemed so like dense with history. But Dan like has found me good places to start. And as for movies, I've never been a huge movie watcher until recently as well because of Dan. I really love Jurassic Park. I remember that.
So, last question from Sam Ruiz. Who has the better kingdom? King of Pop Michael Jackson or King of Rock and Roll Elvis? And his lightning round is they play chess.
Okay.
I have really strong feelings about this.
Me
Elvis
too.
would obviously win. As someone who's been to Graceland, it's awesome. As someone who wants to never, ever go to blah, 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 blah land. Even
Neverland?
though I love Michael Jackson. His music is great. But Elvis, oh my God.
Okay, so
I think Elvis would win in chess, but I think Michael Jackson wins with a better kingdom.
okay, so the straight up answer is Michael Jackson has a higher net worth by like an extra 300 million, but that's the boring answer. I like Elvis way more. I used to be really, really into Michael Jackson music, but I've gotten so much more into like rock and roll, especially rockabilly. So yeah, it's totally about Elvis, but I know for a fact that Michael Jackson knows how to play chess. I don't know that Elvis does.
That's why I was actually thinking we could call an audible and change it to chess boxing. If any of you are familiar with this sport, it's where you play a game of chess and then you do a round of boxing and you alternate back and forth.
Right.
And you score points for them. I think that Michael Jackson's really going to pull ahead in the chess and then Elvis is going to kick his butt in the boxing and we're just going to see which one of them ends up.
I don't know. Michael Jackson's pretty fast.
He's pretty spry. Yeah, that's a fair point.
He also
Especially if it's like late series Elvis, like,
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
Like the pudgy one in the jumpsuit.
Yeah.
But I would say, taking the spirit in which Sam Maurice's question was phrased, I feel like arguably the Kingdom of Rock would have much better infrastructure because it's firmly established that you can build a city on rock and roll.
Oh my God.
And also, like, if you include heavy metal as a subdomain of the Kingdom of Rock, then you can have Metallica leading the metal militia. So, you actually have some semblance of armed forces.
Nah, dude, Death Clock.
I like
Deathclock
Dan's answer.
Now,
I'm on board with Dan's answer. I've switched.
In terms of chess, I do think that Michael Jackson would win because it turns out that the line, it don't matter if you're black or white, was referring to the fact that he's equally comfortable with being on either side of the chessboard. So I feel like he has...
Okay, we're done here.
I love Dan.
So I'm guessing, how many did I get right?
This is from Eugene.
From Eugene. Sorry, Eugene's last question. I'm guessing, how many did I get right? Dan, Sagittarius.
Nope,
Kit,
Aries.
Kit, Libra.
Nope, Aries.
Colin, Virgo. Nope, Aries. Liz, Scorpio.
Nope, I don't even exist on this scale.
She's
Miles, Aries?
Nope, Pisces.
All right.
So anyway, on that note, thank you for joining us on this, our first of what we hope will be many anniversary episodes. hopefully we'll
Thanks for sending in those questions.
Yeah, for sure. It was really fun to read what you guys had to say. We love it anytime you guys get in touch with us. Thanks for a great first year, and
Thank you.
we're hoping for many more.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction podcast on Twitter at Smash Fic Podcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.